Hey, this is Joe Gilder from Home Studio Corner, and this is episode 6 of Mixed Together Season 4, where we are mixing a song from start to finish, and the goal is to finish this up today. I am doubtful that that's going to happen in 30 minutes, so wish me luck, but that's why I love doing this. I don't edit out where I make mistakes and go on, rabbit trails that don't pan out, because that's helpful, I think, especially if you're starting out, to see that everybody goes down rabbit trails. At least, I don't know, maybe there are people who don't. Maybe there are non-rabbit trail people, but I'm not one of them. So, by the way, you can mix this song along with me. If you're just coming in out of nowhere, this is episode 6. There are 5 episodes prior to this, and there are actually 3 other seasons prior to this. You can get access to the multi-tracks for all of those and work through them methodically. If you want, completely free, there's a link in the description for how to do that. Also, this season is sponsored by Sweetwater. If you're not familiar with Sweetwater, go to sweetwater.com and check them out. When I used to work there, they would do these monthly giveaways, and they were usually, pretty good, like an audio interface, a microphone. The giveaways now are redonkulous. So make sure you go to their website, follow them on social media. They do a new giveaway every month. You can sign up for each of them. And yeah, I know your chances are probably small to win, but if you do, like, some of these giveaways are tens of thousands of dollars of stuff. They've just become such a big and influential dealer that all the manufacturers want to give them gear to give away to folks like us in these big giveaways. So make sure you're in that loop, because you just never know. And if you don't win and you want to buy stuff, in my opinion, there's no better place to buy equipment. I used to work there. They're sponsoring this video, but I believed that for a long time, long before they sponsored this series. So let's dive into the mix. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it a quick listen here at the chorus, just to remind myself and you where we are, and then I'll make some decisions as to what to do next. Here we go.
Now everyone's looking for Elle. Everyone's praying she's alright. Everyone's looking for Elle. Where are you? Now everyone's looking for Elle. Everyone's wondering where she's. Everyone's looking for Elle. Where are you?
Okay, something just happened as I was listening. I was first listening as Mr. Mix Engineer, and we got to the part where that little guitar solo came in. Not little, where that guitar solo came in. And I just got into it. And for a moment, I forgot I was listening to a mix, forgot I was shooting a video, was just enjoying myself. And to me, I get a little goosebumps, because it feels good, and I think I've talked about this in this series already, but there are these moments throughout the creative process where you feel a connection to the music, and you kind of forget you're working on music and you're just enjoying it. Like those moments when you're in a concert and you kind of lose yourself and you realize 30 minutes have gone by and you haven't breathed or closed your mouth, because you're just immersed in this thing that's happening in front of you. To a lesser extent, I feel like that happens here not lesser extent, but it happens here in the studio as well. And I think it's important to note when those things happen, because to me, when that happens, I start to say, okay, let's land this plane. Because I've gotten there, right? I've gotten to the point where I've made the music connect with me. I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to spend a whole lot more time on this, because I might go past that, right? I might over mix it. Now, we've spent a bulk of our time on this last chorus, which makes sense, because this is when most of the instruments are happening. This is the part, we want this part to sound great, big, full, warm, whatever adjective you want to use. But we need to kind of now go back and make sure that all the sections prior to it still sound good. One of the big problems I see when I do critiques for people, or even listen to mixes of materials that have good dynamics, but then if they're not mixed correctly, you lose that dynamic. So the mistake is the song will be too big, let's say in the verse, and then when the chorus hits, because it's already kind of at max volume, dynamic, whatever you want to call it, the chorus hits and it actually sounds quieter. It's a combination of the bus compressor is hitting it a little bit more, and also there was just nowhere else to go volume-wise. So to make the chorus fit without clipping everything, you had to bring things down. That's the exact opposite of what you want to happen. I've heard it so many times. There's this nice verse happening, and then it goes to the chorus, and it feels smaller and quieter. And maybe you couldn't measure that, but there's a feel to it where there wasn't enough headroom between verse and chorus to bump up the energy and bump up the volume a little bit, and it ends up sounding so much worse. So the solution to that, at least the way that's worked for me, is to work on those chorus, those big sections first, get them sounding great, and then work backwards from there to also make sure the verses work. So for example, if I'm listening to this this part here, and I skip back to this really quiet section. Now you might think, man, I've been working on this mix and it's nice and loud and big over here. And when I go to this section, it feels too small and weak. And so you might do something silly like, I'm just gonna push the fader up here to emulate that. You might say, I'm gonna make this part louder so that it's closer to the volume of the chorus so that it all maintains this consistent volume. And in your head, you'll justify it and it'll make sense, but it won't sound good. Here's what that would sound like.
Now everyone's looking for it.
You see what I mean? I overdid it, but the idea is now that chorus is actually smaller than this very trimmed down section. So to avoid that, get the big sections working and then work your way backwards, leaving the settings where they are, go back to the verse and see what needs, if anything needs to be adjusted. And if it does, then make those adjustments, a lot of times using something like automation to make the verse sound good, but not so big that it clouds the chorus or overshadows the chorus. So for example, here's the first chorus here. Okay, that's the pre-chorus, I guess. No, this is the chorus. So now we want to make sure if I go into the verse, is it still feeling good, but not too big?
She's probably on her way to Hollywood. No future here, and too many small minds. Elle could only drive down Main Street so many times. Oh, Elle.
Did you feel how that, yes, we introduced 2 new guitars. Yes, the bass got bigger because we introduced that distorted bass that wasn't happening in that verse. And yes, we introduced background vocals. So that happens. But we were able, the verse was down a little bit. So when that chorus hit, it felt like we moved to a new section and got bigger. And then of course, when it gets to this part,
now everyone's looking for Elle.
that's kind of the biggest. So kind of a small, medium, large, tall, grande, venti. Oh, that was dumb. You get the idea. And we want to have, a lot of this has to be baked into the tracks themselves, right? You can't fake this in the mix very well. So there needs to be tracks that are coming in and going out, things that are adding to the chorus to give it more energy. But it is possible to ruin that great energy with the way you mix it. So be mindful of that. Okay, it's time to move into what I call step 5, which is the to-do list method is what I call it. And that is where I literally pull up, a lot of times it's a piece of paper, but for the sake of video, I'll do it on screen. And I pull up this is just a plain text file, and I listen to the song from start to finish, and I make a list. So here are the rules. Rule number 1, I can't type while I talk. Rule 1, don't touch the mix. Rule 2, don't stop playback. So the idea here is I want to hear the song as a whole. I want to hear the whole thing start to finish. If I listen to the first 30 seconds and say, the vocal's too quiet, and I pull the fader down and keep going, then I get to the vocal's too loud. I pull the fader down in verse 1. Then I get to the chorus and I say, the vocal's too quiet. I push the fader back up. What just happened? I pulled the fader down in the verse. Then I pushed it up in the chorus. Guess what? It is now too loud in the verse again. We just undid what we were doing. That's what happens when you go too far mixing. So now we want to think of it holistically. I want to listen to the song from start to finish and take note of things like, okay, vocal's too loud in the verse, but it's actually just right in the chorus. I want to make note of that so then I can go turn the vocal down just in the verse rather than globally. I love to see how far I can get with a static kind of a mix where I'm not doing a bunch of automation. I don't know if it's laziness or simplicity or minimalism. I'm not sure. Probably a combination of all of them. But there are times where I've got to do some of that. The volume does need to change throughout the mix. Doesn't necessarily have to be crazy, but there could be like big sections that need to kind of be adjusted. But that doesn't apply to the entire song. So here's what I'm going to do. Got the rules right there. I'm going to hit play, and I'm not going to touch anything. I'm going to go to the very beginning of the mix, and I'm just going to listen and take notes. Now, this can be, what I'm going to do is make this window a little bit smaller so I can at least see. I'll put it over here. And I'll make the font a little bit bigger. There we go. So I can at least see where I am in the song, what bar I'm at. For the sake of writing it down maybe. But otherwise, I'm just going to hit play and we're going to listen to all 4 minutes of the song before we do anything. The only thing I'm allowed to do, I know making rules for yourself might seem dumb, but it really is helpful. If you haven't tried it, you should try it. The only thing I'm going to do is type into this thing and listen. That's it. All right? Here's playback, muting my microphone. Let's listen. And I would encourage you to do this. Hold on. I would encourage you to do this yourself. Get a piece of paper out, get a whatever. Listen along with me and see what you hear. It's really interesting when you're listening from a holistic perspective. You'll hear things differently than if you're listening in the mix where you know you can stop and adjust things whenever you want. Okay? All right. Here we go. Let's do it.
Elle left town like she always said she would. A restless soul, she's probably on her way to Hollywood. No future here, and too many small minds. Elle could only drive down Main Street so many times. Oh, Elle, where did you run? The day you left this town wasn't any fun. No. Now everyone's looking for Elle. Everyone's wondering where she is. Everyone's looking for Elle. Where are you? Years later, Elle called me right out of the blue. Elle asked if I should come to a long distance voodoo. She has a new life just 3 hours from here. No Hollywood, Elle just wanted to disappear. Oh, Elle, where did you go? We miss your laugh, your smile, your eyes, your glow. Now everyone's looking for Elle. Everyone's wondering where she is. Everyone's looking for Elle. Where are you? Now everyone's looking for Elle. Everyone's praying she's alright. Everyone's looking for Elle. Where are you? Now everyone's looking for Elle. Everyone's wondering where she is. Everyone's looking for Elle. Where are you?
It's such a jazzy ending. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now we have a list. What do we do with this list? So this is where I always am a little hesitant to talk about this process because it sounds like I'm taking away all your creativity, and I'm not. I'm focusing it and directing it because we've all been there. We've all done mixes where we've just spun our wheels, right? Something that sounded pretty good after a couple hours, you spend 4 more hours on it and it sounds worse, and then you just keep throwing good time after bad, right? Like good money after bad. This whole thing was designed to keep that from happening. It came up for me when I was realizing I was going too far with mixes, or the flip side, I was finishing too quickly and not noticing little things like that tambourine there that comes in at bar 68 that's a little scary and too loud. I need to get rid of that or take care of that. I had forgotten about it, and it's just this one little half a second spot. But this allows me to do both, to kind of hone in and focus, but also to make sure I don't miss stuff in the entire mix. Because you'd be surprised, especially if you do this enough when you've got, you're doing a 5-song EP for a client. You've got a bunch of projects lined up, which totally can happen, where you maybe don't listen to the song all the way through on a regular basis, right? You're so into like chorus, verse, bam, you kind of lose sight of the big picture. So that allows you to do that as well. And so from here, up until this point, I let myself be creative, try stuff, go nuts. And then here, it's where I'm starting to focus. Now, my focus is this right here. This list that I've created is my world right now with this mix, and only this list. And so the goal is I listen to all of this. I go through this list. I decide, A, do I still agree with that? If I do, then I do whatever needs to be done to fix it. Okay, still some creativity involved, but it's very focused. And once I clear out everything on this list, I'm done, and I do the process again, where I listen to the entire song and make another list. And the idea is, you do that a few times, there ends up being nothing on the list, and you're done. Now, there can always be something on the list, but you learn to say, okay, that's not going to get any better. I'm not going to put it on the list. That's the idea here. Okay, so let's just go through. I don't care the order that you go through. A lot of times there's some I don't want to deal with, but the tambourine at 68 feels like an easy fix. So let's go to bar 68. By the way, I'm a bad. What are you doing? I'm a bad boy. I just forget to put markers into my sessions. By all means, do it. It'll make things easier for you. I just don't, because I can just see by looking. Oh yeah, the chorus happens here, because that's when all these tracks come in, like these background vocals. But you do you. So let's see. Where's that tambourine thing? Yeah, right there. It's okay. It's not the only thing on this track, but it's right here.
Now everyone's
I don't know if I like it just at all. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna cut it up and just pull that sucker down like 9 dB.
Now everyone's looking for. Now everyone's looking for it.
That feels better. It's still nice, and it's just back there. It's not starving for attention like the other one was. Plus, there's still a tambourine hitting here, isn't there? That feels like those flow together. Okay, great. Problem solved. So we can just delete that sucker. The outro solo could be softer. Okay, first let's take a look. Let's zoom all the way out. And the outro solo is here. Whoops. We've already made it quieter. It's the same tones that we're getting. So the same EQ is going across this entire guitar part. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, do we want, let's see, the riff needs to come up. This is the same. Okay, let's group these together, because this is talking about the same thing. These two are talking about the same thing, right? So, oh, sorry. Whoop. I broke something. Okay. So I need to make sure if I do something to make the outro solo softer, does it mess up what's happening at bar 40? And here's my solution. The outro solo in my head, right here, is kind of a different than what's happening before. So here's the outro solo. here's what I'm gonna do. Basically, I feel like these two riffs here are more like, it's like a different pickup position. It's not as bright and kind of cutting through, but this one and this one are more aggressive. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna bring those down. So we're gonna go ba-bam, bring you down, and I'm gonna bring you down to a different track, okay? They're duplicated. We can see here, they now have the same, it copied the EQ and everything over, but on the second one, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna EQ, first I'm gonna bring this riff up because I said the riff at bar 40 was a little quiet. So easiest way to do that, I'll just clip gain this up here. Maybe 3 dB is a good kind of jumping off point. Let's try that. Okay, now that that's at a good volume, I feel like it has the same tone as this one. And I kind of want to soften that tone more. It's got a little too much kind of crispiness in the top end. I'm going to use a high pass filter to do that. Now, I messed up my windows earlier. Come here. There you go. Good boy. Okay. Or girl, I don't know the gender of Studio One. Okay, so I'm gonna drop this EQ here, and we're gonna put a nice, gentle, low pass like this. So this is going too far, right? But if I bring it up to like 2K or so, let's just see what it sounds like. Now this is 100% personal preference. You might like the crispiness. Simon, who played the part, might like the crispiness. I tend to just like darker guitar parts. I still like single coil pickups, but I just don't want it to be so crispy. So to me, this is the exact equivalent of rolling the tone knob on the guitar. That's what the tone knob is. Generally, it's rolling off some of the high frequencies, right? That's what we've done here. So now this guitar feels like it just sits in the mix a little bit better. Okay, you may have seen what I just did. I noticed that while I like the tone, it's now a little too lost in the mix because we lost some volume by doing that. So I used the makeup gain on the EQ to give it some volume back. So it took away some highs, brought back in some volume in general. Now let's see how that sits. I like it. I feel like sometimes with lead parts, lead vocals and lead guitars, a lot of times I don't want it to sit way above everything else. I want it to be right there, just kind of sitting right on top, so it just feels like a part of the group. It's not a rule. If you want it to be way loud, go for it. That just feels better to me. Let's check to make sure bar 40 sounds okay too. Still sounds like the guitar, still sounds like, I'm guessing, like a Strat, some sort of single coil sound, but it's just not quite as much of that sizzle that was there before. Just for perspective, here it is without that EQ. Let's do the very first note. And then here it is with that EQ. That's all we did. I remember a story. I was at an event at Presonus. This was years ago now. But Craig Anderson was there, and he was doing a talk on mastering. And he said a lot of times some folks will send him mixes, and it tends to happen, especially in digital all digital systems where there's just a buildup of high frequencies that wouldn't necessarily be there in a tape system. Not bad, it just is. And so he would do something like this in mastering. Not this aggressive, not this far down, but sometimes that would be one of the main pieces of processing he would do, and they would come back and say, whoa, did you use tubes? Because it just softened the top end, which is what we kind of associate with what tubes do. So real quick, I'm just gonna play it one more time because my transport was messed up, just to hear the difference. I'll start it without the EQ, then I'll play it with the EQ back to back. Sorry, I had the setting changed because I was doing a critique. Anyway, oh, that's not it either. Options, return, I don't want that. Return to start on. Boy, you think I'd never used this software before. Here we go. Nope, no EQ, then an EQ. That just sounds more like what I would get off of an amp. Does that make sense? Because amps don't give you quite that much. A real amp doesn't get quite as much sizzle off the top, but sometimes digital systems do. And so there are places where that makes sense. Okay. Outro. Okay, we took care of these two. I feel happy about that. Let's stick with the electric guitar theme. We got a couple more that deal with electric. Ride electric guitar on the softer on the intro and verse 1. Okay. So if we go zoom all the way out, we look at verse 1. We've got this electric guitar here. So it feels a little bit like it's a little too bright, like maybe I don't want this boost here, but I also know this guitar is also present in this second verse. Do I feel like it's true there? Let's find out. The reason it feels about the same in both, which I'm glad because it's an easier solution. It just still feels a little bit louder than that acoustic guitar that's its counterpoint. It's just standing out. I don't want to mess with the EQ because I think it needs that to cut through, but I'm going to bring the volume down a few decibels. Okay, that feels better by themselves. How does that sound in the whole mix?
Elle left town like she always said she would.
Okay, a little fiddling with those. That feels a lot better. So we'll take care of this one, and then the electric guitar at 83, a few of the notes pop out. Let's check on that.
Now everyone's looking for Elle.
First, we need to decide, is it the electric guitar or is it the keyboards? Let's mute the keyboard first.
Now everyone's looking for Elle. Everyone's praying she's on.
Okay, it definitely is the guitar. So take a look. Let's look at the waveform, see what we can learn about it. If there's anything. So some of it has to do with the kind of whooshy sound that's on there. Some notes are just cutting through, and if I just turn it down, we're gonna lose that guitar altogether. So I'm gonna put a compressor on here and set it fairly aggressive with a pretty fast attack, a fairly quick release, and gonna have it just kick in on those louder notes as they come through. So we're just gonna watch the gain reduction and make sure that it happens really on kind of the second notes of each phrase here. Okay, I think that's better. It's hitting some of the louder notes and not the quieter ones. Then I can turn up the overall volume just a little bit. Let's see how that sounds. like it, and I don't like the reverb. I'm going to turn that down a little bit. That wasn't necessarily on the list, or was it? I think I said... Anyway, I broke my own rule. Okay, you know what? We're going to call it here, and we'll carry this one over into the next bonus episode 7, where we will deal with these other 3 here, because they're going to take a second to deal with, and then do another round of listening and get this thing finished. So we got a bonus episode 7 coming here in Mixed Together. If you haven't started yet, links below on how to get the tracks for free. You'll also join my email list, which is just a lot of fun. I think you'll like it. In the meantime, happy mixing, and I'll see you next week.